On a cultural level, Star Trek has meant more than anyone would have ever expected. That's something you can't know until a good chunk of time has passed. Clearly, the most important impact that Star Trek has had on society is the catalyst it has been in making people excited about the future. These days, that is an anomaly. Here is one of the basic rules of the universe. Dream positive and big, get positive and big. Dream dysfunctional, get dysfunctional. If you haven't learned that yet, get after it. So why is Star Trek so powerful, and why does it resonate so soundly with its fans? For one thing, it's about ideas. It's about surprising people with new ways to look at things, sometimes really big things. God, petty nationalism, the waste of war. The idea that love is not black or white, but comes in many shades. You know, Star Trek was saying those things long before it was fashionable. And for Star Trek to remain as smart as it has been, it needs to continue to ask uncomfortable questions. Because that is where the best Star Trek, the best drama, comes from. There was a time where I thought that maybe my job on Star Trek was a little on the frivolous side, playing with spaceships and ray guns. Then I witnessed a stream of visitors to the show. Mars rover drivers from JPL, astronauts, heads of state, Ronald Reagan, the King of Jordan, the Dalai Lama. I was there when Stephen Hawking asked to be lifted out of his wheelchair and put in the captain's chair. I can't tell you how many times scientists have told me that they became who they are because of Star Trek. But there's an even more basic and primal motivator designed into Star Trek by its creator, which has grown its influence and popularity exponentially: continuity. The engine block of its fan devotion, and something that has been cultivated carefully and over time. Continuity, the state or quality of being continuous, an uninterrupted succession or flow, a coherent whole. As Psychology Today said, familiarity breeds enjoyment and comfort. Star Trek is comfort. Comfort is knowing that your favorite meal, artist, music, friend is there for you. You count on a delightful flavor, a brushstroke, a riff, a smile. Spock found comfort in his friend Kirk's ironclad continuity of character and described it thusly.
If I let go of a hammer on a planet that has a positive gravity, I need not see it fall to know that it has, in fact, fallen.
Spock counted on the continuity of his captain's thought processes and likened them to the steadfastness of gravity itself. Continuity sums up Star Trek and its half-century of logic-defying success. It is the joy of knowing its history, its taste, and its texture. Knowing it will be there as sure as gravity, like a favorite song whose rhythm and melody you anticipate, and ultimately the joy that accompanies the fulfillment of that promise. Part of the reason for the enormous success of the Marvel Cinematic Universe is its incredible inner logic and continuity. The spotty success of the DC film universe has been its unpredictable adherence to inner logic. By allowing every new director to reinvent characters based on personal tastes, they have hobbled a potentially monstrous franchise. Outstanding quality control and inner logic supersedes the director at Marvel and is the reason it has become the cinematic juggernaut that it is. Roddenberry knew how to grow the Star Trek fan base. He understood the power of engendering a proprietary attitude in its fans. He did this by working to make sure that they felt a part of the show and that they were not just spectators. He did it by making sure that the melody and rhythm fans anticipated were there and, like a favorite song, resulted in that all-important feel-good endorphin cascade. In the seminal work The Making of Star Trek by Stephen E. Whitfield, Roddenberry referred to it as the believability factor, and it applies equally to technology, characters, and the tapestry of its history. As a calculated plan to cement and assure the future success of Star Trek, Roddenberry suggested that Michael and Denise Okuda organize a compendium of facts, aesthetics, and historical pivot points so that the show's writers and ultimately its fans would believe in this sprawling universe, engage their pituitary glands, and bask in the warm cascade of endorphins. It is the irresistible charm and promise of being able to invest your time in understanding it both dramatically and aesthetically and be assured of the validity of that time. Sacrificing consistency would erode the willingness of fans to commit to invest in it by buying books, blueprints, and model kits. In other words, that sense of validity gives you permission to indulge yourself. Another no less calculated and powerful endorphin getter is the joy of being able to strike up a conversation with any devotee in any part of the world and be able to discuss, debate, and speculate the details. This is possible because of Star Trek's carefully built and adhered to inner logic and continuity. This intuitive architecture is the foundation of its magic. That foundation supports all 600-plus hours. Similarly, the visual aesthetic of Star Trek carefully nurtured a sense of reality and continuity by avoiding Starfleet designs that are science fiction-y and flatly based on what is perceived as cool. Cool for cool's sake is cotton candy. There can be no substance to it, and it cannot withstand the test of time. Design practicality, form-following function, and dogged adherence to established design history is one of Trek's superpowers. The best Starfleet designs are those that exhibit a basic understanding of real-world technology. The more the audience examines it, the more layers it reveals, the more evidence it has been thought out, and the more fun and interactive it becomes. Designers like Okuda, Strobeck, and Probert know where it's all going, how it comes apart, and what it does. We relish that part of it, and that's what gives it its pedigree. The fun and linchpin of the Starfleet design ethic, essential to its ability to capture the imagination, is, once again, consistent inner logic. Fans can identify a phaser strip, a characteristic warp nacelle from a specific era, an airlock, or a lifeboat hatch. This is the sport. Fans crave being in the know. Devotees love learning the ins and outs. How stringently production adheres to such contrivances will be equaled by a return in fan devotion. Works such as the Star Trek Encyclopedia and the various tech manuals make writing and designing for Star Trek that much more difficult. Trek writing staffs have long felt hogtied by what was perceived as restrictive rules and regulations. But consider this. Director-writer Nicholas Meyer, a man credited with saving Star Trek with The Wrath of Khan, once said, "Creativity demands boundaries and thrives on restrictions." Sentimentality is powerful, and something that Star Trek has built on for half a century. In Star Trek's second pilot, Where No Man Has Gone Before, Sulu says,
"That is like having a penny, doubling it every day. In a month, you'll be a millionaire."
That sums up Star Trek fandom, but you need that first penny in order to make it work. Sentimentality is impossible to achieve without continuity. Continuity has long been a Star Trek god, and it has imbued a seemingly endlessly durable universe with supernatural longevity. Its success is a complex tapestry. But it is a fickle god, and if you pull out certain threads, the tapestry may unravel. Continuity and sentimentality is the fragile thread which runs through Star Trek, giving it its tensile strength, but it is also the fire in which it burns. This magic architecture requires reliability and steadfast nurturing. Fans must be able to count on Star Trek, otherwise they will learn not to count on it, lose faith, get discouraged, and become cynical. We've all experienced the power of continuity. Muscles aren't made overnight. They are formed through repetition and consistency. It is the same for the muscles of the mind, spirit, and yes, Star Trek and its fandom. It is a decidedly universal constant. Human beings are continuity and comfort-seeking organisms, and we respond to those things in everything we do. This is the cornerstone of Star Trek. It is the joy of knowing its history, its taste, and its texture dramatically and aesthetically, and knowing it will be there like the Rock of Gibraltar and as sure as gravity.